Hey everybody, it's Allie and welcome to our Y&R Chat for Sunday, June 10th, 2018. Kyle's birthday suit scandal is hot news for Jabot. The numbers are in and they are big numbers. So big, in fact, that as soon as Summer saw it, she had to jump right in to her fast, flashy car and hightail it back to Genoa City immediately. Of course, the first thing she sees upon her return is Billy and Phyllis in their birthday suits celebrating the birthday suit big numbers. It was about to be a really good sex session too, I think. The way Phyllis yanked off Billy's belt and snapped it like it was a whip, that was going somewhere. But Summer interrupted the whole thing. Well, Summer is back like a cyclone. This is intense. This girl walks right into the apartment like she owns the place. Oh wait, she does. She does own the place. Her mom has just been crashing at her pad all of this time. It's so ridiculous. I have to get that out of the way. It makes no sense to me. These people are rich and Phyllis can't afford her own place. I mean, now that Billy's the CEO of Jabot, he really should have put in a bid on Chelsea's penthouse suite. I mean, I would not want to live with Summer at all. The second she walked through the door, I would have probably started looking for other apartments. Summer is too young to know what the hell's going on, and she's too old to spank. Although I think she needs a good spanking. Summer Newman is entitled, she is spoiled, she is obnoxious, and she's completely self-centered. She has gone from super girl to super brat. Maybe we could go so far as to say super manipulator. This is not the Summer that we all remember. This is a whole new version of Summer Newman. She springs into town in her fancy Italian sports car, giving us party girl vibe. She doesn't even waste any time getting back onto the scene. She leaves Billy and Phyllis after a couple of quick snarks and goes out to the club. She shows up at this nighttime dance event at the dive bar. It was a really cool set. I really liked this entire concept. The dive bar was converted into a club scene, a dance hall. We had these neon lights shining up in all different colors from the tables. We had globe lights that were glowing. There was shots of all of the lighting equipment. There was a DJ. It was decorated beautifully. There were these hot yellow flowers on the tables and these beautiful drinks that looked so tasty. They were flowing. It was a gorgeous set. Devon did a nice job organizing. He's hosting this, but he wasn't there. Testa was there, trying, being the party planner as his assistant, and Kyle ended up dragging Mariah there to encourage her to pick up on some of Tessa's cues. Tessa had asked them to come to the party, and Mariah's like, nah, I'd rather stay home. Kyle pushes her. Yeah, I like this friendship that's developing between them. He says, oh, I think Tessa's into you. Maybe you need to go to this party and spend a little time with her. So Kyle and Tessa and Mariah are hanging out at this party, and who should show up but Summer? I mean, she comes into this dance like she is the center of attention. She immediately walks up to the DJ booth, grabs the microphone as if she's a local celebrity and everyone knows who she is. And she announces herself as being back into town. It's me, everybody, I'm back. It was so obnoxious. This is the girl that I would not want to spend any time with. Summer's not my kind of chick. Kyle and Mariah are witnessing this and pinching each other, wishing that the whole thing was a nightmare. I was really identifying with Mariah, of course, because I can identify with Mariah more than I can identify with Summer, and these are just two completely opposite personalities. But then there's Kyle. It's an interesting element here that Kyle and Summer have a romantic history. Summer is so obviously desperate for Kyle's attention, and Kyle obviously has a chip on his shoulder toward Summer. I was happy to see Kyle giving her no court. Summer is used to being the center of attention, and she's willing to do anything she needs to do to get that attention, and Kyle just shuts it down. He and Mariah even let Summer think that they're an item. That was fun. These two actors have a really natural chemistry, whether it develops into a romance or just a friendship. Either way, I love them together, and I loved seeing how jealous it made Summer. She corners Kyle, steals a little private moment with him, and asks him coyly if he misses any parts of her at all. And Kyle's not being lured in by this facade. He's seen it all before, and in fact he makes a comment about the fact that he's just tired of picking up the pieces of this whole facade when it starts to crumble around her. And I think Kyle is going to give us a lot more insight into this Summer, who she is, why she is the way she is. And it's a little bit baffling to me because later in the week, Abby had also made a comment about Kyle and Summer's previous relationship, and Abby was implying that maybe Kyle was a little bit sore about the breakup because Summer had dumped him for Luca. I'm wondering if you guys can fill me in on some of these blanks, because I don't quite remember Kyle and Summer's relationship in that way. Maybe I'm thinking back to a couple of Kyles ago and a completely different Summer personality, but I remember Kyle not being as interested in her as she was in him. I remember the dynamic always being a little bit more Kyle as the elusive one. Kyle is the one that she couldn't have, but my memory could be off. I know at one point they thought they might be related, so during Summer's paternity questioning. So I don't know, maybe some of this happened on the off screen, maybe my memory is faulty, but I'm liking Kyle, and I would not like the idea that he's secretly pining away for this train wreck of a person. I do think his assessment of her seems to be true, that everywhere she goes, she seems to be in destruction mode. She's barely in Genoa City for one night, and she's getting arrested. The police show up at the party and arrest her for auto theft. Her little fancy Italian car, this fast, flashy little number that she rolled into town on, very, very proud of, stolen? She gets hauled away from the party in cuffs, spends a night in jail, Summer, in jail, in her little dress, in her makeup, with her hair, jail, all night long. When Phyllis and Billy bail her out the next day, she's claiming that the car is not stolen. It's actually a gift. And here's where Summer starts to give us a little bit of an insight on what she's really been doing while she was away. Apparently, this car was a gift from a married man. Well, maybe not so much as a gift as a bribe to keep Summer quiet about the fact that she's sleeping with this married man. His name is Pax. Good old Pax. And his wife, Poppy, has apparently learned of their affair, and she's called this car in as stolen. Pax and Poppy and Summer, the triangle of the season. I hate them all already. I hate Pax and Poppy purely based on their names and the idea I'm getting from them. Not a fan, but it was a funny little story, and it really gives us an idea of who we're dealing with when it comes to Summer. While she was away on her extended vacation around the world, mostly what she was doing was partying and carrying on in a manner that is unbefitting of a lady. Unless, of course, that lady is Madame Dina Mergeron. There's only room for one class act floozy in this town, and Dina's already got that spot filled, so Summer is just a floozy. Oh. Well, when Billy and Phyllis and Nick and even Sharon all end up having a conversation with Summer about her behavior, getting her side of the story, they start to, of course, parent her and tell her this is all very, immature and irresponsible behavior, wanting to correct her here. And Summer, rightly, I suppose, tosses it right back in their faces a little bit and says, this is the pot calling the kettle black, you guys. Who are you to judge me about the fact that I was having an affair with a married man? I seem to remember all of you doing the exact same thing. And the way Y&R framed that scene, Sharon and Billy were standing next to each other, Phyllis and Nick were standing next to each other, and we know those were affairs. Those were both affairs. So Summer is just doing what she has seen done repeatedly. This is a pattern in the lives of her parents, her role models, and all she's doing is emulating that. In some ways, she is modeling herself after the old Phyllis. I mean, how many times do we as fans note that the children are nothing like the parents? And here we are now getting a dose of that. Summer is the new old Phyllis in a way. Look, this is the child, we have to remember, who lived through the Nick, Phyllis, Sharon triangle. That position that Faith is in right now and has always been in with her parents breaking up and getting back together, that was Summer for a number of years. In many ways, Summer is purely living out the product of that triangle. And in a lot of ways, I think that her cynicism about love and marriage, it comes from the fact that she lived through all of that. Really, who in her family has been a shining example of good relationships, whether it was romantic or just being an example of how you should live your life? I think that all of this brash behavior of Summer's that we're seeing this week stems from that, and also clues me in a little bit to someone who has been hurt very badly. When I see Summer acting out, I think to myself, this is someone who's been hurt and is now lashing out, and maybe the hurt is more than one level. I'm very very excited because Summer is giving me someone to really sink my teeth into here. We're getting this first impression of her, of course, that is very brash, but I believe there's going to be some more layers that we can peel away here. Maybe I'm trying too hard to give some substance to her. I don't know. Maybe I'm making excuses for her a little bit, and that could possibly be because I filtered out and deleted a lot of comments from the website this week that were unnecessarily negative about not just the character but the actress. When you have someone, a character or an actress, who's coming onto the show in such a way where it's blatant, bold, bad behavior, it is an invitation for people, I think, to lash out at that character or at that person. So I saw so many negative comments that were just unnecessarily cruel about the actress's appearance or the character's appearance or what have you, that I think maybe it made me want to look a little deeper. It made me want to find something about her that I could like or that I could get into, or maybe just something that I can understand about her and why she is the way she is. I love an underdog, and I'm not saying that she is that yet, but I personally am happy to feel something for her. It's much preferable than the meh feeling I had when the casting notice came out. What was it? 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, when I announced that Summer was coming back, I was saying, meh, I don't really care. I got no connection to the actress. I was really very blasé and even a little bit disappointed, if I'm honest with myself, to know that this character was coming back because I just don't care. But here I am, caring. And that says a little bit of something to me, but maybe you guys don't feel that way. I think we need to get a beat on that and make that our poll question of the week. Summer's scandalous return to Genoa City. Are you into it? YRChat.com. Let's get some conversation going around Summer, because surely none of us are ready to put a stamp of approval on her behavior, but are you finding it compelling to watch, or are you just way too turned off to even get into the character now or down the road? I will be interested to hear your comments on that. It's probably going to get a little harder to understand Summer as the weeks go on. I mean, maybe this is just where I am right now, because next week and in the time to follow, I think it's going to become increasingly clear that Summer has some mommy issues. She's coming off as, first of all, very resentful toward Phyllis. I'm not entirely sure why, but Summer seems to see Phyllis as the ultimate uncool, square, conservative mom that we all know Phyllis isn't. Summer's looking at Phyllis as if she needs to just shut up and go back to her knitting circle. That's not the Phyllis that I see. Yes, she's calmed down a little bit, but Phyllis square? I don't think that's the case on any level. And so it's a curiosity to me as to why Summer feels that way and why she seems to maybe even want to hurt her mother. I'm getting the impression that Summer wants to take away a little bit of Phyllis's happiness. The way that Summer came slinking down those stairs in her nightie to prance around in front of Billy when she knew Phyllis wasn't home. I mean, it wasn't that revealing of an outfit, but she was making sure to work it, that there was a little bit of belly that was exposed, and oh, I'll just bend over and get something out of this cabinet. And she made sure that he was looking. Summer is very adept at making sure that the men are looking, and she is becoming very adept at using her sexuality in order to get something that she wants. she's has no boundaries. I mean, really, that was one of my first thoughts is this could cause some serious trouble if Summer is going to try to rope Billy into something. Billy better keep those eyes looking straight ahead. Oh, we saw the preview then of another moment between Summer and Billy that's going to be happening next week, and Summer's there alone with him and another nightie, only this time she is telling him, I think you're cute. She seems to be implying that he's looking at her in a certain way. He's saying, no, 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 that's not what's happening here. And she says, it's okay, I think you're kind of cute. It's interesting TV, though. It is interesting TV, and I think it could go a couple of different ways. It could simply be that Summer is toying with Billy, and she's just trying to get a reaction. She's just trying to get some attention and maybe get up under Phyllis's skin a little bit. Or it could also end very badly at the end of the day. I would like to believe that Billy wouldn't knowingly or willingly participate in any kind of affair or even flirting with Summer. I would like to believe that, but if Summer is very manipulative, she could always just say that something happened between them. She could set it up so that there's an appearance of something having happened between them. And all of this, whether overt or not, could cause Phyllis a little bit of stress. I mean, you know, if Phyllis picks up on a vibe between Billy and Summer, that could be enough to really cause her to rock her own world. Even if that never happens, the stress of what's going on with Summer alone could be enough to cause Phyllis to act rash, do something that could blow her own world up, that could send her even possibly in the direction of someone else, such as Nick. Phyllis seemed to be having a hard time with the idea that Nick and Sharon might be moving away to San Diego. And now we have an unruly Summer coming back into the picture. Almost seems like something that Phyllis and Nick are going to have to work on addressing together. I'm starting to think that Arturo is a genuinely nice guy. Maybe Abby and the audience were being a little bit paranoid about him. Maybe the whole thing with Arturo being suspect and any suspicion around Arturo was just Y&R toying with us a little bit, playing on the fact that Abby has this questionable history with judgment about Newman and her life, because now I'm starting to think that he is on the up and up. When Abby confronts Arturo this week and tells him that she knows all about the relationship he had with Nikki, he was so completely rational. I mean, the guy just approached it very maturely and said, yeah, you know what? Nikki and I, we had a thing. It's over now. And even throws it back at Abby a little bit, saying, if you think that I was just using you for your money or your name or anything else, then actually maybe you're not the person who I thought you were. We've spent time together. If you think that of me, then maybe you're not the person that I thought you were. I thought that was a really mature way for him to approach it. He even tries to mend the fence with her, though, and encourages her to meet him up at the Hot Summer Nights dance party, but Abby shows up late to the party and Arturo was accidentally pulled in by Summer's party girl laser beam let's dance. Abby sees him there breaking it down. Summer's kind of dirty dancing with him a little better. She's definitely got her moves worked out, and Arturo is just having a good time, and Abby sees him there, thinks that he is working on hitting the triple Newman girl jackpot, and walks up in front of him and dumps a drink over his head to teach him a lesson. He took it so well, though. He didn't blow up. He just accepted that he was having a drink dumped on his head. And the next day, even when he confronted Nikki about it at the athletic club, he was very calm and measured talking to her, saying, "Why would you tell Abby about our relationship, but then not really give her the full story, that it wasn't just a fling, that we did have intimate conversations and that I did have feelings for you and that there was more going on?" Somehow Abby walked away from that conversation thinking that maybe I was using her, and that's not the truth. Why would you let her think that? And I like that perspective. I completely get Arturo's perspective. I do also still think that Abby deserved to know about what was going on with those two. And if Arturo wasn't getting around to telling her, I think it's good that Nikki forced his hand. I just think that the right thing for Nikki to have done would have at least been to give Arturo a heads up. Maybe something along the lines of, "It's time for you to tell her. This is making me uncomfortable. If you don't tell her, then I will." Rather than just going behind his back and blowing the whole thing up. That doesn't feel right upon thinking about it for another week. So Arturo does run into Abby later. He tries to smooth over the waters. This is someone who he's been having a good time with and is interested in getting to know, and he wants to see if he can fix it. He's so earnest about fixing it, and he's so rational in trying to explain himself. She did believe him, and it's clear I am believing him too, but that also doesn't mean that Abby has to choose to continue on with him. Even if he's legit, the seed of doubt has been planted, and she can't really put herself out there and get hurt again. I mean, that I completely get from Abby's perspective. Opening yourself up to someone is a huge risk, and after you've been hurt so many times, I think you just go into a self-protection mode, and she says, I just can't anymore. I forgive you. Let's definitely be friends, but there's nothing you're going to say that's going to convince me to continue on in a romantic fashion. So, is that it? Is the actor who plays Arturo only on a short-term stint? Is he gone from the show now? I have no idea. Is this the end of Abby and Arturo? And if so, are you disappointed? Were you rooting for Abby to take him back? Nikki asks Viktor to explain what has gone on with Nick. And Viktor tells Nikki for the first time that Christian is not Nick's son, that Christian is Adam's son, and they had an argument, and now Nick is threatening to keep Christian away from him. So Viktor presents it to Nikki in a light that he is the victim of this, and he explains to her, manipulates her in the way that it paints him in a certain light and makes it look like Nick is the bad guy. The thing about that initial conversation, and in fact I think it's the only conversation we saw between Nikki and Viktor about this whole custody situation, was the fact that as Viktor's explaining it to Nikki, what he says to her is, "I can't lose another heir." an heir, not a grandson, not a family member, an heir. That says everything that I need to know. It is not about Christian. None of this is about Christian. It's about Viktor. It's always about Viktor. Well, Viktor catches wind that Nick and Sharon are preparing to uproot their life, move to San Diego, and he is not going to have any of that. He's not going to let that happen. Sharon actually did decide to sacrifice her own life that she's built there in Genoa City to help Nick move to San Diego and make this new reality for themselves. But Viktor stops it by serving Nick with papers. He's now, there's an injunction against Nick. He can't leave the state while this whole custody thing the whole custody case is going down. It's surprising actually that Nick didn't already think about that. There was no way that if Viktor was going to go through with a custody case that anyone was going to let him leave the state. But this whole thing it's so ridiculous to me because it's not in Christian's best interest. None of this to me seems to be in Christian's best interest. It doesn't seem to be about the child at all. It's a feud, an ongoing feud between Viktor and Nick. But the guns are out. There's no stopping it. Viktor's going through with it. He hires Michael as his attorney, which is a bit of a double-edged sword for me because I love seeing Michael. I'm always glad to see him on my screen. It's just under very unfortunate circumstances. I'm kind of disappointed in Michael a little bit for even taking this case, but it should create some good drama, especially because Nick hires Brittany Hodges to be his attorney, to defend his side of this argument. And I think that's going to be really good. Brittany is going to pull no punches, and I am excited to see her in action. Hopefully that'll be next week. And I think that seeing Brittany and Michael play off of each other will be very good. They're both going to be very, very passionate. Both sides are very passionate, and both sides are looking for ways to win, even probably if that means playing dirty. That's certainly what Viktor is doing anyway. Viktor implied last week that he is willing to use Sharon's past against Nick in this custody case, and Sharon realizes herself this week that she may very well be Nick's biggest weakness. If Viktor is going to come at them with ammunition that is about her, Sharon stands right there and lists her own rap sheet. She tried to keep Christian away from Nick. There was a point in time when Nick tried to have her, and I think successfully did have her, declared an unfit mother. I mean, even Sharon even pulls out all of the old stuff she did. You know, the fact that she was blacking out and stealing things. The fact that she burned down the ranch. It was just what I had feared when we were chatting last week, that the solution would end up becoming Nick and Sharon putting distance between each other in order to bolster or help, or at least not hurt, Nick's case. I just, in a way, thought Nick would be the one to think of it, but it was Sharon who suggested that maybe she just needed to get out of his life. Nick doesn't want that at all. He is just starting to build a new life with Sharon. He wants to be with Sharon. He wants to raise his family with Sharon. So Nick tries approaching Nikki, thinking that maybe Nikki would help him put an end to all of this. Okay, Nikki's reaction baffles me. I'm absolutely baffled. what she tells Nick when he approaches her is that he needs to start thinking like a Newman. Which I think means you just need to start playing dirty in response to what Viktor is doing. That's her advice? Start thinking like a Newman? And then she goes on to make all of these excuses for Viktor. And she talks about his profound pain and how everything he does goes back to his sense of abandonment. And yes, I get that. I have been a Viktor supporter for years. I know that he was an orphan. I know that in so many ways he craves the love that he never had. But here's the problem. There's never any growth from Viktor. How can Nikki just accept that? How can she not be tired of it when I'm a Viktor fan and I'm starting to get tired of it? As a wife, why, or even as a family member, why is it not okay to expect him to follow through with the change that he says he's going to make? Why is it not okay to expect that he is going to grow and then hold him accountable to it? Nikki's just going to sit back and twiddle her fingers while her husband rips away her son's child? That doesn't make any sense to me, and it doesn't matter how many different ways Nikki tries to make excuses for Viktor or tries to explain it away as her years and years of history and realizing that she can't control him. None of that matters to me. It still doesn't make sense. Does Nikki just really hate Sharon all that much that she's willing to let this custody battle go through so that Nick can't raise Christian with Sharon? When did any of this become about Sharon in the first place? It's another sign to me that none of this has anything to do with Christian. It's about every other thing except Christian. The lawyers agree that they're going to take this case to arbitration instead of dragging it through open courts, you know, so that Sharon won't have to testify publicly, so that Sharon's not dragged through the mud. More about Sharon. It's just about Sharon. I am looking forward to that arbitration meeting next week, though. It should be good. But in the meantime, Sharon, now realizing that she's in the hot seat, she goes to Viktor, hoping to appeal to his better judgment. Yeah, right. And when that doesn't work, she goes to Nikki. And Nikki basically shrugs her shoulders. Viktor will be Viktor. What can I do about it? If I couldn't do anything about it 20 years ago, I can't do anything about it now. I can't change his mind. So Sharon says, you know what? You better start changing his mind. If you don't, I've got one word for you. JT. Sharon looks Nikki dead in the face and says, don't test me. You won't do well in prison. You better do something about Viktor or I'm gonna tell the police everything and I don't care what the consequences are. I'm sorry, but my feeling on the matter is go, Sharon. You go, Sharon. Somebody needs to put an end to this and Nikki needs a reality check. Dina is so delightful when she's well. I loved her this week. I loved her big, splashy fuchsia hat and of course her signature shades. It was just wonderful to see her out at the dive bar, someplace modern, having a mint julep and a lovely conversation with Jack, knowing who he was, recognizing him, and having a lucid conversation with him. I don't know if anyone else felt this way, but the whole time I almost was just expecting her to slip away at any moment. Like I'm enjoying the moment, but knowing that it's so fleeting that I'm worried about it. I'm imagining that you know, the next second she's gonna look at him and not know who he is. But I really enjoyed it for what it was, and she was able to maintain herself for the entire afternoon, and I thought it was great. I just don't know how much I trust her version of this story, though. I mean, maybe this is me just being a stubborn fan, but Jack starts to question Dina about his biological father, and he's asking her questions about her life with John, and also asking her, what was it exactly that made you cheat on John? Why were you seeking out other men? And she said to Jack that she felt lonely in the relationship with John. Okay. He's always working. All right. But then I started to question her as she said, you know, the only thing that meant more to John than family was Jabot. And that John had expectations of her, that she would be the dutiful wife, and that she would throw his dinner parties and entertain his guests. And he was wanting more of her than she was able to give. Okay, now I am capable of forgetting a lot of things about the show because so much happens every single year. But I remember John Abbott, okay? And John Abbott was never the business before family guy. John Abbott was always the opposite of that. He was always the anti-Viktor. Viktor represented business before family. John Abbott was always all about his family. He wanted to build Jabot so that he could bring his family together and be in it. And maybe there was some ambition from him in the early days. We didn't see that part. That part wasn't on the show. This is all part of history that we never would have known, all happening before the show started. But at the same time, I never, not once heard John indicate anything about the business being more important to him than his family. And I can't imagine him wanting to force Dina or anyone else into a shell, like making her throw dinner parties and acting a certain way at the club, leaving her alone and abandoned. All of this is the picture that Dina is painting, and I'm sorry, but I call BS. As a longtime fan, I am calling BS on this one. That doesn't feel consistent at all with what I know about John Abbott. To me, this seems like the writer's way of rewriting the show's history in order to give us a story today. Like, John's dead, we need something for Jack to do. Let's give him a new dad. Anybody else feel that way, or is it just me? Next week, we had a preview where we see Jack rifling through a box and picking up some different papers, and he's at Neil's house, Neil's new penthouse, and Neil is telling him, oh, Jack, the answer to who is your father could be in this box. And of course I want to know. It is a good story, I guess. I mean, I'm intrigued by it. I have no idea where they're gonna go with this, but I'm also terrified of this because I just hope in my heart of hearts that it's not Viktor. We had that nightmare that Jack had a couple of weeks ago, finding out that, or dreaming that Viktor would be his biological father, and then we had a scene this week where Jack and Nick were talking about fathers and biology. Jack and Nick and Are they brothers? I don't know. I don't know. Victor has no more. I mean, the Y&R has set it up so that Victor has no more children. I mean, Victoria told him off this week, and he made it very clear that he's not going to be promoting her anytime soon. Victor has no more children or even grandchildren left that will want to run his company, and I just can't decide if the writing is on the wall or not. And if it is, then is it pure genius or purely vile to think that after all of these years, the heir to Victor's throne might be his son, Jack? Chelsea's old condo is back on the market. She apparently left it to Anita as if she was dead and leaving it in a will. So Anita is now selling it to the highest bidder. Anita is going to have a big payday that she completely does not deserve. I don't know if anybody else is thinking this, but after what Anita did to Nick, extorting him with that video goodbye from Chelsea in exchange for some money, and Nick ended up giving Anita Chelsea's engagement ring, I don't want to see Anita get another dime. So as this three-way bidding war over Chelsea's old condo begins, I'm just thinking, I just don't want anybody to give any money to stupid Anita. Oh, well, it's clear that Hilary is in the running for this condo. She wants to live next door to Devon. And it's clear that Neil is really, really wanting this condo so that he can buy the place so that Hilary can't live next door to Devon. And then there's Jack, who just needs a place to live that isn't at the club. Maybe Jack can just go move in at the ranch with Victor and they can be happy together forever. No. Well, it was fun watching them rush around and try to come up with their best offer for this penthouse. Devon ends up helping to take Hilary out of the running altogether, knowing that she's not going to be able to afford to outbid Jack Abbott or Neil. So Devon asks her to just move in with him. And she accepts, naturally. Neil doesn't know this, though. He ultimately wins the bid on the condo, despite Jack's attempt to wine and dine the realtor, which was a little bit fun to watch. Neil ends up winning the condo anyway, and of course, right, that makes complete sense. That's where the drama is. There's no drama if Jack lives across the hall from Devon, but there's plenty of drama if Neil lives there. And Neil, of course, eventually had to realize that he's gonna be neighbors, not just with Devon, but with Hilary too, now that she's moving in. So here's what we have. Either Neil is going to have a front row seat now to watching Hilary and Devon's reunion, or he is going to be within striking distance to prevent it. Shauna is still secretly staying in Charlie's bedroom, and we got a really cute teen bedroom set for Charlie. There were so many things to look at. I think there was a lava lamp, or there was some sort of spinning light, and it was definitely a cool teen bedroom. It looked more like what my bedroom would have looked like as a teen. It was sort of retro. There was a Rubik's Cube and some old records and a bowling pin, and something about it just came off as maybe not a modern teen room, but it's always fun to see something new. I enjoyed it. The problem is This is not a happy circumstance for the two kids. Lying about Shauna staying there feels icky. It feels, Charlie doesn't feel good about lying to his parents, and Shauna certainly doesn't want to force him into that position. There was pretty much no way out of it, though, once Lily finds Shauna in Charlie's bed. Lily was livid. She flipped back those covers thinking she was going to find her son in there, and there's a girl. Lily calls Kane immediately. She practically drags Shauna down to Hamilton Winters by her ear to confront Charlie about the situation, assuming, of course, naturally, that it's a sexual situation. I think any parent would think that, and Charlie and Shauna are trying to explain that it's not that they're trying to help Shauna, and of course the parents wouldn't assume that that's what it's about. Lily straight up asks Charlie if they're using protection, and they both cringe. Both Charlie and Shauna are like, no, that's not it at all. I think that the fact that it was innocent, that there was no sexuality going on between them, or no sex going on between them, should really speak to the severity of Shauna's situation. That in their minds, Shauna's safety is the only thing at stake, and that's why they made the decision to hide her in the bedroom. I guess I just assumed then that the situation with Shauna and her aunt was a little bit more dire. We got some more information about that this week, and it seems that Shauna doesn't feel as much in danger as she feels uncomfortable staying with the aunt. The aunt has made some comments about really not wanting her there, and it's not a very hospitable place to be. The aunt doesn't even keep very much food in the house. As soon as all of this comes to light, Lily and Kane start to understand, and they want to help. They want to find a way to help, whatever that means. I think it's amazing that Lily and Kane were able to turn their minds around so quickly. There was a moment where Kane pulled Charlie aside and just said, son, tell me, is this the truth, or are you guys sleeping together? And Charlie was very earnest with his father and just said no. I loved that Kane believed him immediately. The family came together and offered to help Shauna after hearing her story. Lily makes a phone call to the parents and ends up offering Shauna a place to stay. I gotta give it to them. I'm not sure that I necessarily would have made that move. I think I probably would have been angry with the parents and the aunt, and maybe would have forced them to take some action to help their child. But Lily and Kane have very open hearts, very open home. They have lots of love, lots of food at their place. Shauna will be very happy there. There are kids her own age that she can relate to. Oh, but no, actually, Hilary has something to say about all of this. As soon as Hilary gets into the loop about what's going on with Shauna, she insists that Shauna will not be staying with Lily and Kane. Oh no. Shauna will be staying with she and Devon. Look, I admire Hilary's commitment to Shauna, but this is a critical time in that household. First of all, Hilary and Devon seemed reunited last week to me. What happened? Did I just misinterpret that? Did I imagine the chemistry and the conversations that they were having? I'm confused by Hilary and Devon, and I think that they really need to get their relationship on the same page. They need to set some expectations. They didn't even discuss the sleeping arrangements before she was having boxes hauled in. And you throw this teenager into the mix now It seems like a recipe for disaster to me. They are testing the bounds of their relationship. They are preparing for a life-changing experience, having a baby, and Shauna already had a place to stay with Lily and Kane. It seems unnecessary to me. And I think maybe Devon would have preferred it if Shauna would have just stayed with Lily and Kane. I can't entirely blame him. Hilary didn't exactly ask him for his permission before dragging Shauna home with her. But when Devon throws up a little bit of resistance to taking in this teen, Neil sits him down, has a talk with him, explains to him that it wasn't real easy to make the decision to allow Devon into his home with Drusilla. I remember that story very much. It took Neil quite a while to warm up to Devon and to be okay with Drusilla wanting to bring Devon into the home. So I think Neil's conversation with Devon was well placed, well timed, and he convinces Devon that maybe it's time for him to pay it forward and allow this to happen. So it's settled. Shauna stays with Devon and Hilary, and Hilary's reward for this good deed? She gets to share a room with Shauna. This is not exactly ideal for Hilary, who I'm sure has already been imagining herself slipping right in to Devon's big bed every single night. It's also not ideal for Shauna. I'm sure that Shauna would have much preferred to continue living with her adorable boyfriend, Charlie. Last week, as Tracy was appealing to Jack, trying to get him to come home to the Abbott mansion, she says to him, "Look, biology be damned." It was such a line that I suppose you don't expect to hear coming out of Tracy's mouth. And not a lot of you guys guessed it. So I got to give extra props to everyone who guessed that biology be damned was Tracy. Tracy said it to Jack. So congratulations, Anna, Kyle, Henry, Consuela, and Diana. Very, very well done. I think you guys are going to get this one too. I'm Switzerland. Who said it? I'm Switzerland. If you think you know, you can go to yrchat.com to leave your guess, and if you get it right, then I will give you your shout out on next week's Y&R Chat. All right, let's read your comments. Kyle says, I have a theory about some of the recent set changes. Because A, CBS Studios stage space is limited, and B, Genoa City events move along so quickly nowadays with Mal's each episode a day treatment, they need more smaller secondary sets, i.e. Victoria's upstairs, Newman Enterprises kitchenette, the courtyard in front of the Abbott mansion where Nikki and Arturo had their convo, etc. And therefore, they have compacted certain set exteriors, i.e. Sharon's new porch, they don't have to set up the woods, the frosted window in Jabot's CEO office equals no city landscape backdrop necessary, etc. So while I'm sad not to see the woods just outside Sharon's door anymore, I do like all of the smaller sets they're working on to the show. Kyle, this is really a great theory. I think you hit the nail on the head. I was wondering about Sharon's new screened-in porch, and we talked last week about the new Jabot CE office set. I really think that probably is right. I mean, there is only a limited amount of space that Y&R has to work with, and maybe by, for instance, redoing Billy's CEO office and adding in that different window, maybe that's how they were able to make some room for some other sets. That's really, really insightful, and I think probably true. Oh, okay, so in other behind the scenes news, I have seen a lot of the comments this week about Michelle Morgan, Hilary, leaving the show. Now, this is all coming from a Daytime Confidential report. I haven't seen anyone else confirming this information at the time that I'm recording this. So I'm kind of holding off a little bit on digging into our reactions until I get confirmation. I'm gonna need to hear it from Michelle Morgan's mouth if indeed she is leaving the show, and if that's the case, you know, we'll get into it probably by next week. I of course personally would like to see her continue on the show, but I also understand that this is a business decision for both parties, so if she is leaving, then we'll wish her well. I get the feeling though, if she is leaving, it is unplanned for, because there's a lot going on with Hilary and Devon right now, and they certainly didn't move Neil into that penthouse next door for nothing. So we'll get into it more if it develops, when and if it develops. Ellen says, ugh, preachy Neil again. Like billionaire sweetheart Devon wouldn't welcome Shauna into his home after having been adopted himself. Ridiculous. Devon already mentioned buying the apartment downstairs to expand the penthouse. He has money to burn and can easily make room for 3 people and the baby. No preachy lecture from Neil needed. Why don't they give Neil something interesting to do, Ellen says. Well, you know what? First of all, it's kind of ridiculous to think that Devon's penthouse only has 2 bedrooms. Please, he's a billionaire. Billionaires would live in a place where there's 6 different bathrooms, for crying out loud. And about Neil, I am digging Neil's wisdom. I like that about him right now, but Neil is going to need to get a life of his own eventually. He just can't keep continuing on this path telling everybody else what to do. Eventually, Y&R is going to need to write him a story of his own, give him a girlfriend or a purpose or something. Oh, hey, Sharita, I like that you mentioned this, says that she'd like to see that realtor become Jack's on and off again girlfriend. You know, I enjoyed that realtor a lot more this time around than I did previously. I thought she did a fine acting job. Her name is Erica Giardi. She is from the Real Housewives show. I don't know what kind of acting background she has, but I liked the character of Farrah too. I don't know if I want to see her full-time with Jack, because I want Jack to be full-time with Gloria. But what about Neil? What about Neil and Farrah? Why not? I'm glad you mentioned that though too, because she's a character that I probably wouldn't normally be compelled by, but I thought the actress did a really nice job. It's nice to have also some fresh faces, even if it's not a full-time gig. Sharita had mentioned the way Y&R used to work Roxy in as Devon's girlfriend. She was on the show sometimes, but not all the time, but you got a sense of someone new without having them be front burner all the time. Consuela says, it kills me that Jack feels like he shouldn't call John his father anymore. Every time he says my father, then corrects himself to say John, is just ridiculous to me. Ashley has no problem calling John Abbott her father, so why would Jack? Oh, Superplex says, oh, a thought just crossed my mind. Could John Abbott have a brother? Does the blood Abbott clause pertain exclusively to the descendants of John Abbott, or could it have been included with any member of the Abbott dynasty? Gasp! Gasp! Superplex. This is genius if this is where Y&R is going with this. What if John Abbott not only had a brother, but what if John Abbott had a twin brother? And this is all a clever way to work Jerry Douglas back into the show? Would we be dying? Would we be dying? I would. That is so good. Twin, or, you know, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be a twin, but, you know, I mean, maybe. I want to put a little bit of faith in them because I think Mal and the team have done a really good job so far. Oh, let's skip over to Abby. Laura says, stay strong, Abby. Say no, mean it, and follow through. Do not waver. Walk away just so you can realize that relationships can be on your terms. It would not be nice to see Abby have some relationship that was healthy and, as you say, on her terms. Daisy has a really good alternative view of everything that's going on with Nick and Sharon and Viktor. Daisy says, I'm so tired of Sharon. I thought she turned her life around, but no, she's still springing into evil action. Nick will likely find out that she's blackmailing his mother. Hopefully then he will realize that she's the same person who did a lot of hurtful things, including keeping Christian from Sage. That has got to be brought up during that custody hearing, right? It is hard to forget that Sharon was knowingly keeping Christian from Sage and that she was kind of chasing her on the road that fateful night when Sage got into the accident. But you know, that's an interesting alternative thought to mine because I think I naturally tend to be on Team Sharon. But I mean, if anyone else out there is Team Nikki or Team Viktor, if you guys are seeing things a different way than I do, I want you to tell me because that helps me keep rounded. Ellen says, I'm not buying the idea that Sharon is a big danger to Nick's custody of Christian. Sharon is a Girl Scout compared to Viktor. Have Brittany put Jack and Phyllis on the stand and let them explain the entire Marcos saga from beginning to end. The judge will enjoy that one. If it's not enough, Victoria and Nick can testify about Viktor getting Chloe out of a mental institution and framing his son for murder, which led to his own son's death. That'll be a charming sequel. Honestly, if they tell the story properly, no judge would let Viktor even have visitation rights. If they tell it like Nick and Sharon have to break up because of Sharon's past, it's going to be really annoying. Ugh. You could be a lawyer, Ellen, are you? You get in there and defend Nick. Gary says, is it documented anywhere that Adam specifically did not want Viktor to have any kind of control over his children and that he specifically put Nick in charge of them? This is a good question because I seem to remember that it was a verbal request. I remember Nick visiting Adam while he was in jail, and it was then, I think, that Adam was requesting that Nick be Christian's father figure. But it is a curiosity to think about, was there any way that Adam could possibly have explicitly said this? We all know that Adam's drive in life, in part, was to keep Christian away from Viktor. He arrived years before to the conclusion that Viktor shouldn't have any part in this child's life, and Nick is just now having to defend it. Gary also mentions that maybe there's someone who can testify to this. I can't really think of anyone other than Chelsea who would be able to weigh in on what Adam's wishes would have been, and I'm sure that they wouldn't bring her back, but maybe they could come up with a letter or something. I don't know. Do you guys think that Viktor is actually going to end up getting the custody? That would be where the drama would be, but that just seems so unbelievable to me. Is there anyone out there that's wanting Viktor to have custody of Christian? Again, I'm happy to hear some alternative perspectives. Well, let's get into Summer because I got a lot of comments about Summer this week, of course. Nathalie says, I'm sorry to say that I don't have any connection with the actress who plays Summer, and I'm not super excited by her return. Elizabeth says, I was looking forward to Summer's return, but she's a totally new character. She was more sweet-natured and kind-hearted. Didn't her character leave Genoa City to go build homes for those in need in Belize? This is reminding me of JT's return, which I was also excited about, but was left to wonder, who is this new person? I'm trying to think, Elizabeth, because I thought maybe Summer just went off on a vacation. I don't remember if she was building homes. That sounds a little more like Mackenzie. Maybe that was the circumstance that Mackenzie left the show under. I want to say that Nick and Phyllis just bought Summer a European vacation to get her mind off of everything that went down with Luca. And if that's the case, yeah, I mean, I can kind of see Summer just jet-setting around the globe for all of these months. I mean, it may have been a year by now, and I could almost kind of see her attitude being a little bit too big for her britches if that's the case. But yeah, she is coming off as a totally different character. Katie says, is Summer on drugs? Seriously. Who leaves town a timid people pleaser who is afraid of everything and then comes back as a bratty, entitled, self-absorbed, for lack of a better word, bitch? I feel like I've missed something, Katie says. It did also occur to me that maybe Summer could have a drug and alcohol problem. That could explain some of her rash behavior. It seemed like Y&R was wanting to do some kind of addiction storyline. We saw hints of that with JT. So it's possible that they could head down that path. Alice says, as a young actress, I wonder if Hunter King is struggling to switch between her character on Life in Pieces and her role as Summer on Y&R. I was a bit disappointed that she didn't seem like the same girl we knew before. Well, Alice, gosh, I guess I don't attribute the change to the actress. The way I'm viewing it is that maybe the actress is just doing what she's being asked to do. You know, I mean, obviously she's not writing the lines, and I think she's being directed. I would attribute this to being a revamp or maybe even an evolution of the character. But I'd bet you dollars to donuts that she's doing exactly what they're asking her to do. I think Y&R's bringing her on to cause a bit of a stir and possibly even to further things along, make the situation with Phyllis and Billy and Nick and Sharon a little more extreme, maybe to give us a Phyllis, Sharon, Nick triangle. That's just my interpretation. Diana says, I like this rebellious and wild Summer. She's definitely a lot more interesting. I think it's realistic to how Summer's personality would be, given the role modeling that her parents have provided for her. I like the idea of Summer seducing Billy. This could be a very compelling storyline. I wasn't looking forward to Summer's return, but I'm already very intrigued. I happen to agree with you, Diana, in that I don't love these actions, but I think it is making a compelling storyline. Sandra says, why do I have a sneaking suspicion that Summer's going to somehow lure or trick a drunk Billy into bed, and Phyllis is going to walk in on that? Oh, that might be it. Oh, that might be it. That's pretty rotten, Summer, if that's the case. T. Nicole says, I am swooning over Mariah and Kyle. I'm in love with those two together, and I can't wait till it's official. The dancing scenes, I had hearts in my eyes, and how Kyle was spending the whole night with Mariah. They were cute together, and I want more of them on my screen. I like Mariah and Kyle too, T. Nicole. So at this point, chatters, who are we rooting for? Are we rooting for Mariah and Kyle? Or are we rooting for Mariah and Tessa? Or, I don't know, are we rooting for Kyle and Tessa? This could go any number of ways. I'd love to get some weigh-ins on that. Last week, I have to correct myself a little bit because both Anna and Justin had sent me messages to talk about, I had mentioned that Jabot Cosmetics should actually release a cosmetics line. We were chatting about birthday suit and the sunscreen and all of that, and both Anna and Justin wanted to let me know that Jabot Cosmetics did exist, that they did actually try to roll out that line in the past, and it wasn't exactly successful. I googled it, and you can still get some of the products. It looked like there were some different skincare items, and maybe I'll have to get some of that. Oh. Also, the last thing I want to mention is our poll results. I had asked you guys if you'd be turned on or turned off by Jabot's accidental birthday suit campaign. The overwhelming majority of you were turned on by Kyle's birthday suit, saying, where can I get some of the sunscreen? But 26% of you said you would be turned off if you were watching the Hilary Hour and that got put in your face. Justin was one of the people who voted turned off, and I wanted to present his comment here saying, I cannot tell you how many times I rolled my eyes watching that episode. All of those models parading around in swimsuits was so gratuitous to me. I've never liked the rooftop pool set. Rarely is there any pivotal action or storyline progression taking place on that set. To me, it's Y&R's transparent excuse to get people in skimpy swimwear. I want real drama, not Big Brother. No offense to those who watch Big Brother. But this brings me to a question, Justin says. Is there a set, current or past, that Y&R had that you did not like? Oh boy, Justin, I can think of a few. I'm a little surprised I just love that dive bar set. I can feel you in terms of it not being a place where there's a whole heck of a lot of action, but I just think visually it's pretty. I like the colors. It's bright and it pops, but there have been a lot of sets that I don't like. I mean, you know, I talk week after week in the past about how much I hated that underground set. It was the worst. I was glad to see it come burning, crashing to the ground. But the other one that I still am having trouble adjusting to is the new ranch. I do not love that new ranch set. There's just something about it. Maybe it's because I'm still pining over the old ranch, especially thinking this week about how Sharon burned it down and how upsetting that was to me. But it had that pretty picture window, and the new ranch just doesn't feel like Viktor and or Nikki. But yeah, I don't know. Those are probably the ones that I can think up off the top of my head that I don't love. But I'm sure there are others, and I'm sure there are others that you can name out there. So let's toss that out to the crowd. What are some sets on Y&R, current or past, that you could do without? Leave me a comment. Let me know. All right, everybody, let's hit the road. We've done a lot of chatting this week, but feel free to keep your chats coming throughout the week. YRChat.com. There's a place where you can leave your thoughts as you're watching the show or after you've watched an episode. You can also vote in our poll and play the games and all that good stuff. It's a good place to go and not only talk about your feelings, but see what other people are saying throughout the week and interact a little bit. Okay, everybody, I hope you have a good one, and I'll be back next time to chat about our favorite show. Okay, bye!